Many of you that listen to my story times know that I spent an awful lot of time with my granny as I was growing up. She was born in 1888. So by the time I came along, she was, well, what a lot of people would consider to be fairly elderly. Um, I mean, she wasn't one foot in the grave and the other on the banana peel by any stretch of the imagination, but she was much older and she was wiser, and she saw a lot of things coming that a lot of us hadn't paid a lot of attention to at that point, as school age children. And I remember a lot of the wisdom that she laid on us as I was growing up, me and my cousins. And she got razzed a lot for a lot of her sayings and things that she'd say. And one of them that I remember because I laughed so hard about it as a kid was she always had two pairs of spectacles. They didn't call them glasses back then; they called them spectacles, and they folded up and fit in a little what you call a spectacle case. And she always had two pair of them. And my cousin was visiting one Sunday afternoon, and he saw that she had one pair on her head, and she had one pair sitting on the little table beside her. And he says, "Granny, why you got two pairs of spectacles?" And she says, "Well, I've got one pair to fall back on." And he says, "A pair to fall back on? They break if you fall back on them, and so what good would they be then?" And she just shook her head. I didn't understand the old timey way of saying things. One pair to fall back on. She says, "Well, if one pair breaks, then I got another pair to fall back on." He says, "But if you fall back on them, you'll break them." Oh my. And I spent the most time with her because we just lived right down the road from her. And so I tended to spend my weekends as much as I possibly could at her house. And on Saturday night was a television show. It was a variety show, and probably a lot of you young people never even heard of it, but it was called the Jackie Gleason Show. And he put on all kinds of skits, and he had all kinds of guest stars and stuff on his show. And he also had these dancers on his show that was like the ones you see at Las Vegas, or maybe the ones that you see at Radio City Music Hall. And they wore them feathery type outfits and stuff, and they danced around on the stage and kicked up their heels. And they wasn't wearing a whole lot. And this was back, oh gosh, in the 60s. And we'd sit there and watch that show, and she'd be knitting. She was always knitting, or maybe quilting. And she'd be watching that Jackie Gleason and his entourage, and them June Taylor dancers would come on, kicking up their heels, and she'd shake her head and shake her head. And finally, I asked her, I said, "Granny, every time them June Taylor dancers come on that TV, you sit there and shake your head. Well, is there something wrong?" And she says, "I'm here to tell you that one of these days they're going to be on that TV as naked as the back of my hand." And she'd hold the back of her hand out and point at it with her other hand. She'd say, "As naked as the back of your hand." Now, I'm not kidding you. I'll be dogged if she wasn't right, because you can turn on some of them channels on the TV and get blinded by some of the things that you see. But Granny saw it coming, buddy. She'd tell you all kinds of things that was going to happen, with automobiles. And she'd say, "Look at them fly down the road." And I mean, it probably wasn't going but 50 mile an hour. And she saw, the way some of them buzz around at 100 mile an hour or better out on the interstates. Buddy, wouldn't that get you? I often wonder if she was still around today, if I took her like to, some of the cities or something, and we went downtown, and I took her shopping in some of the big department stores, what she'd think. And I wonder what she'd think about internet or cell phones that you take everywhere with you. I mean, back in them days, we had a party line. And the funniest one about Granny and the party line was she had a border collie dog. And she had some chickens in there. There'd been a raccoon getting in her chickens. And Dad says, well, I'll take care of that. So what he did is he baited a trap and set it. Didn't think nothing about that dog. And I'll be doggone if that dog didn't get in that trap in the late night and went to howling. And as soon as it happened, she knew what had happened. And Granny ran and got the phone. And she picked up the phone, and there was, of course, people on it. I mean, 24/7, there's somebody on that doggone party line. And she says, oh, I need you to get off the phone. I need to use the phone. It's an emergency. It's an emergency. And, of course, they cleared the line for her, so she could call. And she calls up at the house and tells Dad, you got to come in a hurry. Rose caught out there in that trap. And so, of course, Dad dropped everything, and off he went to get the dog out of the trap. And when the dust settled off the whole thing, I mean, Rose's paw was sore for a week or two, but he wasn't hurt bad. But she says, oh, I'm sure that them people that was on the phone when I run them off, they're saying it was an emergency, was listening in to see what the emergency was, and they probably think that I'm crazy as a loon for calling about that stupid old dog getting caught in that trap. Oh my goodness. I told her, I said, well, what don't worry about what the neighbors are thinking about your dog caught in a trap. You had to do something for the dog. Oh my. But yeah, Granny saw it coming. She knew a lot of things that was going to be happening in the future. And it was just from sitting back and observing.